And then Robert, earlier question you asked was related to the married puts, to the radioactive trades. And this is where we buy the stock and buy the put to have the controlled risk in the position, single digit risk. And Robert says, using the default criteria that we have based on the blueprint, which is the full course where we discuss the married put approach and our preferred 12 adjustments off of that married put position. You say that I'm using the search, and the default filter shows that it's 150 to 900 days out in time. We prefer to go at least 5 months out in time as a default, though usually on average we might be a little bit farther. Okay, because before I change the days to earnings, days to expiration filter, we say that the long into the future is the optimum. I don't want to stay in a trade for 210 days. No, but at the same time, I would like to get the best out of married puts. Okay, so what is Robert saying? He's saying that based on what we look for in the married put position, we already talked about one of these, which is not really related to this, but a little bit. There are essentially 3 core principles we talk about for radioactive trading, defined in the blueprint, discussed in general, and really these 3 core principles apply to any investment strategy, as we've sort of already discussed, not only with just the bull put credit spreads, but also the naked puts, the risk of exposure, and the risk of overtrading. The 3 core principles are force, position sizing, proper position sizing, force ideal trades. Okay, what do I mean by that? In our bull put examples, I was only using $6,000 as a starting basis for our transactions and for our simulations. Why? Because I would not trade bull put credit spreads with more than 10 or 15% of my total portfolio value, because there is going to be a time when I'm going to see a 50% drawdown in my credit spread portfolio. I know it. I've experienced it twice now. Luckily, I didn't on February to March 2020. February 5th through 9th, 2018, took a 50% hit on my positions because all my stops were hit when that sudden trade war with China discussion started and the market just dropped. You want to make sure that when you open any position, leveraged or not, buying calls, buying puts, that you're not exposing yourself to more than, say, 2% of your total portfolio, potentially in the worst case scenario. The married put forces this idea up front. You're forced to buy stock and buy a put option. So right away, we know we have a controlled risk of 4, 5, or 6%. That's forcing us to force an ideal size trade and proper position sizing. That's automatically taken care of with a structure. Number 2, the at the money bell curve, which we discussed a little bit just a moment ago for Marcia with the naked put positions. What does that mean? It's when I'm selling and I'm using income methods, selling a call against this married put structure to create sort of a collar structure, selling premium against it where I can leave the upside open but still generate income with income method number 6 in the blueprint. I want to be selling closer to at the money to maximize the time value. But when I'm buying, I want to be in the money in the case of puts, or out of the money to pay for that lower time value. That's why we're looking for the in the money positions to control risk to single digits, because we're getting the intrinsic and paying less. Wouldn't I be paying less time value if I bought out of the money in those cases in a married put? Absolutely. But now the insurance doesn't kick in until the stock falls 5, 10, 15 points. So now the maximum risk with the out of the money puts with lower time value is 15 to 20%, not the single digits I want to keep it to at 6%, 7%, or less than 8%. And finally, Robert, related to your question, is the time decay curve of the options. And what we typically look at here, this is about 90 days out to expiration. Time decay curve. This is about, I'd say this is about 60. This is about 30. This is about 15. This is about 7. This is 90, roughly. This would be 120. This is 150. 180 days to expiration, and you get the idea. The time decay curve is much slower as you go further out in time, and that's what we're fighting against. And you said, so I don't want to stay in the trade for 200 days, but at the same time, I'd like to get the best out of the married puts. And that's exactly why we have these default sets. My average, by the way, is around 220, 230 days. Of all the trades I've entered with the married put positions in the Fusion portfolio and so forth on radioactivetrading.com, that's what we typically see. That's me personally. Ernie's a little bit, sometimes longer, sometimes shallower. I think he's 180. But I rarely stay in the positions, as you mentioned, Robert, all the way to expiration. In fact, usually I close the positions when I hit within 60 to 50 days to expiration. Why? Because if my goals have been hit, what do I not want to do? I don't want to lose that last quick time decay over the next 60 days on the put that I can get right now by closing it out. 210, 240 or more is a really good range. 150 is okay. 180 is okay. 6 months out in time. That's still pretty good on the time decay curve. There's nothing wrong with your thought process on this, Robert. 210 is great. 220 is great. 240 is great. 427 is great if you're okay with the cost for paying the extra time. But I don't want to be buying 90 days out. I don't want to be buying 60 days out in this structure, the proper structure to control risk, following the ideas and concepts discussed in the blueprint. I want to be at least 150 days out in time. And again, as I mentioned, on average, I'm at least probably 220, 230 days out in time with my average on the puts when I start a bull put credit spread. But yes, following the rules in the blueprint, there's a whole chapter in the blueprint on when to exit the RPM in different situations, completely covers that as well.